The question is this: what are the damages? How bad is the outcome if she doesn't?
It's fixed.
It's fixed. It's showing up
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Perfect.
Right?
Thank you. Come say hi.
So what's the Hello. Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Mwiriwe. I start by apologizing for being a little late, but we are here now. So on behalf of the Memory Keepers Association, I want to thank you. Thank you for taking time, giving us your beautiful afternoon. It's nice outside. I'm very sure you could have been in so many other places, but you chose to be here. We acknowledge that. In the same rhyme, I want to acknowledge the land that we stand on. We honor and acknowledge the land on which we stand on today. It is Treaty 6 territory. It is a place on traditions and land of First Nations and Métis people. We honor and are grateful to be allowed to call this land home. Without going further, I want to welcome Deborah. She's going to lead us in two national anthems. The first national anthem will be the Rwandan national anthem. It is a nation that we call home. It is the nation where the genocide against the Tusti in 1994 took place. We'll also have the Canadian anthem in a way of acknowledging that this is a country that we call home today. So welcome, Deborah.
If I could ask you to stand up. We're going to start with the Rwandan national anthem. Rwanda nziza gihugu cyacu uje imisozi ibiyaga n'ibirunga ngo byiduhetse gahorana ishya reka tukurate tukuvuga ibigwi wowe utubumbiye hamwe twese abanyarwanda uko watubyaye berwa sugira singizwa iteka komeza imihigo Rwanda dukunda duhagurukiye kukwitangira rw'amahoro asabe mu bagutuye wishyire wizane muri byose urangwa n'ishyaka utera imbere uhamya ububano n'amahanga yose maze ijabo ryawe riguha ijambo. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriots love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, everyone. I apologize, I forgot to mention some few housekeeping rules. starting by introducing myself. My name is Nicole, and I will be the MC of tonight. The housekeeping rules goes by this. These two, left and right, we have the exits. The washrooms are on our right-hand corner, both the gentlemen and the ladies. In case of fire or any other emergency, we are to meet at the front entrance, and that's where our master point will be. Also, I wanted to remind that this event may be a little traumatic, may be heavy. If you need space, we have a team of professionals that are ready to help. We also have a designated room, so you are very welcome to, if you feel that you need space, we have people who will support you. Now I'm going to welcome our pastor, Pastor Serge, to come and lead us in a prayer before we continue.
Can we stand on our feet before we pray, please? Heavenly Father, as we cry out to you when we remember the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, we trust you to be with us. As the scripture says, the devil come to steal, kill, and destroy. But, oh God, you have come to give us life in abundant way. We thank you, Lord, for be our God. What happened in 1994, 31 years ago, actually started in 1959 when people start to be killed because of who they are. We know that the evil spirit, oh God, of that ideology is still around. And our only hope is in you. That, oh God, we're going to confront it with love. We're going to confront it with strength. We confront it with resilience. We thank you for some survivors that are among us today. You have been with them, O Lord. They have rebuilt their lives, and we thank you because you have been there with them. Oh God, we keep our eyes on you, that the same spirit that is still around in our great region, lake in Africa, oh Lord, time will come, it will be put to an end with you. We pray, oh Jesus, because wounds and trauma are still there. And the same spirit of killing people because of who they are, there is no way we can confront it, oh God, without you. We pray that only you, God, can bring healing to the one who still live the trauma, to the one who still have fresh wounds, even though it's 31 years ago. We trust you, that only you can bring comfort. We thank you, God, to be with us. Let your grace, your mercy be with us. Start with you, and, oh God, be with us until we're going to finish this event. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Serge. Our next item on the agenda will be the lighting of the candle. I will explain a little bit how this will take place. So we light the candle as a sign of hope. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi of Rwanda took about 1 million of our people. The people in this room are the survivors. The people in this room are orphans, widows, and people who were greatly affected by the genocide. Despite the horrors and the aftermath that people live with, there is hope. So that's why we light the candle. We light a candle to say that we are still alive. We light a candle to say that we choose life. Today, we have 2 beautiful children, Abia Kabuye, accompanied by his mother, Claire Murebwayire, who survived the genocide. The genocide against the Tutsi of Rwanda took Murebwayire's parents and almost her entire family. Also, we have Tesi Kamatari, accompanied by her father, Norbert Kamatari. Norbert Kamatari is the solo survivor in his entire family. These 2 people still carries hope. Please arise as we acknowledge them. Thank you. As we're still standing, I want us to take 1 minute of silence as we give respect to the victims of the genocide. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you. Now I'm going to welcome 3 people that I call my friends, who graciously accepted to share their testimony with us. It will be a panel of discussion. Why we chose this panel and what is the theme. When we say the genocide against the Tutsi of Rwanda 1994, it sounds as a heavy term, it's a big term. There is no greater crime against humanity than the genocide. In truly though, it does not cover the experiences of the survivors. the genocide starts and the genocide ends. What the survivors live with does not end. They carry on. It affects every aspect of their lives to the second generation and the third generation. Today on the panel, you will hear how these three wonderful individuals have been affected, continue to be affected by the genocide against the Tutsi. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Egide Mugabo, if he is in the room. Please make your way forward. I'm also going to welcome Sandra Niwe Mutoni, if she's here. Please make your way. Last but not least, I'm going to welcome Daima Christine. If you're here, please welcome. I will moderate the discussion. I encourage you and I implore you, please pay attention. It is not easy to share one's personal story, especially when we're still living with the traumas. So please be with us. Hello. Okay. Once again, welcome and thank you. Bear with me. I really want to thank you for accepting to do this for us, to be vulnerable. And I want to mention that truly this is a safe space. We usually say we start with the ladies, but today we're going to start with the gentleman. So we can pour some strength from him because it's not going to be easy. So Mugabo, we want to please share with us, who are you? I said your name, but who are you? How did the genocide, who were you before the genocide? And how did the genocide left you? You're welcome to use either language that you want, and I will do a little bit of translation in the after.
Murakoze. Amazina yanjye nitwa Mugabo Egide. Ndahera mbere ya Genocide gatoya. Mvuka mu muryango twavuga turi abana batandatu. Nari umwana wa gatatu. Ariko Genocide ibaye twasigaye turi abana batatu. Umuto muri twebwe twasigaye twarahungu batatu. No, twarahungu bane n'abakobwa babiri. Navukaga gati y'abakobwa babiri. Bose bombi barabishe, banabica ndeba. Mfite imyaka 6. Sogokuru na nyogokuru babyara mama basabye iwacu umwana waza mu rugo kubafasha kuko nta wundi mwana muto wari uhari, bahita banyereza kwa sogokuru, njya kuba kwa sogokuru. So nakuze rero ndi umwana ukunzwe n'impande zombi, haba kwa sogokuru, haba n'iwacu kwa papa na mama, kuko aho najyaga hose nahajyaga bankumbuye. So nakuze rero ndi umwana ubona urukundo ruhagije. Mu gihe cya Genocide nyirizina, no, reka nsubire inyuma gatoya. Iwacu habaye itotezwa rikabije kuko njya nibuka papa bamutwara bamutsindagira muri butu y'imodoka y'ivatiri kandi yari umugabo muremure w'umusore ngo ni icyitso. Icyo gihe ni icyitso sinari nzi cyari cyo kuko nari icyo gihe nari mfite imyaka 9, hari muri 91 iko na rimwe na kabiri. Nibwo twatangiye kubaza ibirimo biba, ababyeyi bakadusobanurira. kuri iyo myaka mitoya, ariko hari iyo bakubwiraga rimwe na rimwe ntubyumve. Njye nibuka 92 nigaga mu mwaka wa kabiri ngira no wa kane ngira ngo umwe mu baonkire banjye yagiye mu nkotanyi, abarimu umwarimu watwigishaga ahamagara undi mwarimu, banshyira imbere barankubita ngo nimvuga aho yagiye, mu by'ukuri ntaho narinzi. Uwo munsi tugiye no muri recreation, abana babiri nabo baramfata banjyana inyuma y'ishuri barankubita ngo bampora ko ndi umututsi, abana twiganaga. So n'ibindi byinshi aho ngira ngo ni amateka yanjye ya mbere jenoside gatoya. Muri jenoside nyirizina nahunganye n'umuryango wanjye, nubwo nabaga kwa sogokuru, kwa papa naho ntihari kuri, hari mu birometero nk'icumi uvuye kuva kwa sogokuru ujya kwa papa, hari ibirometero nk'icumi 15. Rero abari bari mu Rwanda ntago jenoside yatangiriye rimwe ngo ahantu hose batangirira umunsi umwe kwica. Hari wasangaga hamwe barimo kwica, aho batangiye kwica bagahungira ahandi. Kwa papa rero batangiye kwica, abantu bose bahungira kwa sogokuru aho giye narindi. Bahageze turahungana twese, twahunganye turi abantu abo twajyanye icyo gihe twari abantu 33 bo muri famiye bari mu rugo rumwe. Nyogokuru niwe wasigaye, aravuga ngo ntago yasiga inka n'ibiki byose n'ibindi byose, urumva yaranakuze cyane ntiyari kubibasha. Ariko abo bose uko twahunganye nta numwe wagarutse, ni njye nyine nagarutse. Uko twahunganye twese ni njye nyine nagarutse. Iyo ngeze ahangaha nibuka cyane bakimara kwica mama bamwiciye ahantu kuri escalier, noneho ngiye nagiye hirya gatoya nsa n'uwihisha, ariko ntaho kwisha hari hahari. Ngaruka ahantu nari nasize umuryango wanjye wose, nsanga abantu bose bapfuye, abo twahunganye bose nsanze bapfuye. Nsanga mama bamwiciye kuri escalier, ntekereza nkaho ari kuvunika wenda ahantu ari. Noneho yarahetse umwana nawe akimufite mu mugongo, umwana yabaye amaraso. Neguye mama, umwana arampamagara, umwana wari bucuri wacu. Mitabona ko ari muzima, mbona ko ari muzima, muvana njishura ingobyi mama yaramuhetsemo, ndamufata mushyira ku rutugu, negera abandi aho barimo biyegeranya ngo dukomeze duhunge, mushyira ku rutugu ndamutwaraza gupfa sinabimenya. Buri munsi ngeze kuri uwo mwana bisa nkaho binaniye, kuko hari umuntu w'umugabo wanyegera arambwira ngo mwango kuyikorera umwana wapfuye. Ndamufata mujugunya ku ruhande nkomezanya n'abandi. Ngira ngo ibindi ndaza kubikomeza nyuma. Murakoze.
Mugabo, before I say anything, the protocol team would appreciate tissues very, very much. I'll pay $1 million for them. I try my very best to translate a little bit of what he just said. Mugabo said that he was about 11, 12 years old when the genocide happened. He lived at his grandparents'. It was a common thing in the Rwandan communities where the grandparents will have one child from one of the grandchildren to come and live with them. So he lived with them, but his father's house wasn't far. He described how when the genocide against the Tutsi started where they were, they went to take refuge in a school nearby. He went with about 35 members of his family. Out of those 35 members of his family, he's the only one who survived. He described how he witnessed when he was hiding a little bit behind the school. He witnessed how they killed each one of his family members. In particular, he described how he saw how they killed his mother, who had a baby in the back, and the body of his mom was laying on one of the stairs. So he went, as an 11-year-old child, he went to try and lay her down properly, and the child in the back called his name. So he took the child and continued the walk as they were walking to take refuge. Little did he know that the child also had died along the way. He will continue later to share a little about his story, but once again, Rakoze Mugabo and Komera. Now I'm going to turn to Sandra. Sandra, also, if you can, please share with us, who are you? Around what age were you during the genocide? Who were you before the genocide? And who did you become after the genocide?
Murakoze. Nikore yavuze amazina yanjye, nitwa Sandra. Nsubiye inyuma gatoya mbere ya jenoside, iwacu twari dutuye ahantu bita Ikinyinya. Ikinyinya ni umurenge wa Kinyinya, i Gasabo. Ku baba bazi muri Kigali ni hafi ya Nyarutarama na Kibagabaga, biregeranye ni hafi yaho. Ubuzima bwa mbere ya jenoside bwari ubuzima bwiza bwa famiye yuzuye. Yari famiye igizwe n'ababyeyi, twari abana 4, ntabwo ndi imfura ariko nta nubwo ndi na bucura, donc nari umwana wo hagati, umwana wa gatatu. Imbere yanjye hari musaza wanjye na mukuru wanjye nakurikiraga, inyuma yanjye hakaba musaza wanjye mutoya. Jenoside yabaye nanjye ndi mu kigero nk'icya mugabo, nigaga mu wa 4 primaire. So navuga ko twari dufite ubuzima bwuzuye bwa famiye bwiza. Famiye yanjye yari yarampaye byose umwana yakenera, ntacyo nayiburanye, nari mfite byose. So ubwo rero by'amateka yabanje mbere, ntabwo kwitwa umututsi ntabwo nabimenye mu kwa 4 kuko twatotejwe mbere yaho cyane. Umuryango wanjye ku myaka mitoya cyane nari mbizi ibiri kuba. Navuga ko twatangiye kumenya amateka ya politike tukiri abana kubera amateka, kubera ko bahuraga baza kudutera, kutubwira ko bazatwica. Bwari ubuzima kuko twahoraga twiteguye ko anytime hagira ikintu kiba tukaba twapfa. Ariko kubera ko nari mfite ababyeyi hafi, umwana burya ntago abatekereza, aba yumva afite protection yose ihagije. Ntago numvaga ko ari umuntu wakora ku muryango wanjye. So ubwo rero navuga ko urugendo rutangaje kandi rubabaje rwatangiye ku itariki ya 6, nibwo naturutse mu rugo. Nagiye bantumye, hanyuma ntabwo nagarutse mu rugo. So ubwo niba nibuka neza hari ku itariki ya 6 après-midi, bantumye ahantu bamurushya rwo kurara. Ntabwo nabashije gusubira mu rugo, urumva umwana hawe uruhushya rwo kujya kurara, nagiye ndi excited mvuga nti ndarara yonyine n'abandi bana. So ariko ntabwo nzi ko ari wo munsi wa nyuma wo kubona wa muryango wose. So ubwo naragiye, jenoside itangira iryo joro. Umuryango wanjye kuva ku itariki ya 6 naho mbaheruka. So uko twari umuryango w'abantu 6, amateka yanjye y'ubuzima bwo gusigara njye nyine yatangiriyeho. Byarakomeje. urugendo rwo muri 1994 ntabwo ndi burutindeho cyane, ariko uwo muryango wose uko nawusize inyuma abantu 5 nta n'umwe warokotse, ninjye nabashije kuvamo. So ubwo naho mbaheruka, urugendo rwa jenoside rwo rwabaye rurerure, rwabaye guca mu ntara nyinshi zitandukanye, guturuka Kigali, Gitarama, Ruhengeri, Gisenyi kugera muri Zaire. Icyo gihe niko twahitaga. So navuga yuko ibyabaye babishe nahari, nanjye nari ndiho ndashakisha uburyo nabaho. Ubwo navuga ko isura yabo n'amajwi yabo mbaheruka kuri iyo tariki, ntabwo nongeye kubabona. Nakomeje urwo rugendo kugeza muri Zaire icyo gihe ko yitwaga muri Congo. Nagarutse nsanga barabishe bose, ndumva naza kuza gukomeza urugendo rwa nyuma yaho wenda nyuma, ariko urwo rugendo rwanjye by'umwihariko ntabwo rwari urugendo rworoshye, rwari urugendo rurimo amarangamutima menshi, rurimo kubabara mu buryo buri emotional ariko n'uburyo buri physical. Ubwo wabara amabariyeri nanyuzeho kuva Kigali kugera muri Congo yari menshi, kandi nayanyuzeho nitwa Umututsi. So ubwo ndumva urugendo ni rurerure cyane, turakomeza.
Thank you, Sandra. It's really not easy to be here. Again, I'll try to translate. Sandra tells us she was almost the same age as Mugabo. She was in grade 4, so around 10 years old. She comes from the family of 4 siblings and mom and dad, so a family of 6. The night the genocide took place, Sandra was not home. She had a permission to go sleep over at a friend's house, so she wasn't there. Sandra says that that night that she went for a sleepover is the last night that she saw her mom, her dad, and all her siblings. She went on of the journey, of the whole genocide journey, then the 3-month, on her own, traveling from Kigali all the way to Congo. You can imagine how that journey was. The same common trait that they both have, although they were young, although they were little, they can remember that persecution did not only happen in 1994. They grew up with it. They grew up with a lot of being picked on, a lot of being traumatized in the neighborhood, in the schools. But because they had parents, there's something, as a child, when you have your parents, you think you are protected. You can go through everything, even though you may see it, but you feel protected. So that protection was taken away in 1994. We will continue, but again, Sandra, thank you for sharing. And now I'm gonna turn to my beautiful Daima. Daima, please introduce us who you are, who were you, and who you are now.
Yeah, hi, I'm gonna speak in English. So my name is Christine Daima. So who I was before the genocide, I was not there. I was born after the genocide. So I can't share my experience with that, but I can share who I am. I'm just gonna tell you guys who I am. I'm a daughter of a sole survivor, and I was born in Rwanda, in Kigali, and I immigrated here when I was 5. So I'm going to bring a little bit of humor here because it's very somber and it's very dark. But yeah, I grew up here, had my education here. I got married, have a kid. I'm a probation officer, have a master's. I don't know what else you want me to say, but and I love the Lord. Yeah.
Thank you, Daima. Ndasemura kubyo Daima avuze. Daima ntago yari ahari mu gihe cya jenoside yakorewe abatutsi. Dayima yavutse nyuma. Dayima avuka ku mubyeyi warokotse jenoside yakorewe abatutsi, arokoka wenyine mu muryango wose. Dayima navuga ko ari symbol ya hope. Dayima uyu munsi arubatse, afite umwana, yarize ararangiza, afite master's degree. Dayima akunda ubuzima. Thank you, Dayima. Thank you, everyone. Now I'll go to my main question. There's a little bit of a lengthy introduction, but it was very needed. I'm gonna again go back to Mugabo. Mugabo, you told us that, I don't know if I translated that. Mugabo survived with actually 3 of her siblings who were not with him at the place, but at the end of the genocide, he found 3 of his siblings, his younger brother and his older sibling. In a way, because I kind of know his story, I know that afterwards, at 11 years old, he took on a parenting role. He had to take care of his younger sibling as a child. It was a very common trait with a lot of survivors. A lot of people in this room stopped being children and they had to grow up overnight and take care of their younger siblings, those who were lucky enough to still have siblings. Mugabo, please share with us, what was it like to stop being a child and take care of somebody else when you so much needed to be taken care of? What was that like? And what is that like even today?
Murakoze. Nyuma yuko mbona ibyo byose navuze mu kanya, ngira ngo mwese murabyibuka jenoside iba hari muri vacances. Imana yapfuye ku wa gatatu, ishuri rizatangira ku wa mbere. Hari abana benshi bari mu vacances icyo gihe. Hari harimo n'uwo mukuru wanjye ndetse n'uwo murumuna wanjye. Abo bombi basigaye ntago bari mu rugo. Umu grand frère yari yaragiye kwa data wacu, noneho n'uwo petit frère yagiye kwa mama wacu. Ariko petit frère we ubundi ntitujya tubivuga, nta n'ibyo azi, yari umwana cyane. Baramwishe, baramushyingura, imvura iragwa iramutaburura. Ndibuka mpura nawe bwa mbere, ntago ingingo ze z'umubiri zakoraga. Yaje kudutungura, agenda nyine abo umuntu muzima. Ubu ni muzima, ni umugabo, arubatse, afite urugo. Ngewe maze umwaka umwe muri Canada, naje amaze ukwezi abyaye, yaramaze imyaka igera kuri 7 ashatse. Byaranze, twese twaranabyakiriye, ariko naje maze kumuhemba. Grand frère nawe mubona, nsubiye inyuma gato, iwacu ni Rwamagana. Grand frère nawe mubona yahise ajya mu gisirikare. Ariko ajya mu gisirikare, urubyiruko rwinshi icyo gihe bajyaga mu gisirikare, gahunda ari ukwihorera. Ajya mu gisirikare azi ko nta muntu n'umwe asigaje. Noneho jenoside ikirangira, tutafite aho kuba tuzerera mu mujyi wa Rwamagana. Ndibukane nambaye igikoti kirekire, ndi mu mujyi Rwamagana, nta n'umuntu n'umwe mfite. Mbona imodoka ya gisirikare iparitse, ipakiye abantu benshi, abajene bari bavuye ku ikosi. Ndayegera, nyegera, mvugira ariko ntiwasanga hari umuntu nzimu. Nyegere mbonamo grand frère, nuko namubonye. Nsubiye inyuma gatoya, mvuye inyuma, abantu nagiye mpura nabo muri famille, abo bana bari baragiye mu vacances, bose bababwiraga yuko umuntu wabasha kubabwira ko bakiriho ari mugabo kore wahunganye n'iwawe. Noneho buri wese akajya mbaza ngumbwira ukuntu iwacu bari hehe ko mwajyanye, kubisobanura bikananira. Naje kugera aho mbikiragira, maze hafi umwaka n'igice ntavuga. kuvuga byarandiye kabisa. N'ishuri ritangira ntabwo nahise ndisubiramo kuko sinavugaga. Muri abo bana harimo umwana wa mama wacu n'undi wa masenge basigaye bonyine, ariko bo bose nzi uko bapfuye. Abo bana nabo n'abana b'abakobwa babiri nabo bari mu bana numvise mfite inshingano zo kwitaho nubwo nanjye nari umwana. Rero ntabwo byari byoroshye, noneho twabaga mu miryango itandukanye. Nk'uwa masenge we rwose ibintu byose byari byaranze ku buryo hari ikintu cyabaga ni njye nagombaga kujya kugikemura. Yabaga muri famiye y'Abahutu bamutoteza, ariko mama umudamu wo mu rugo ari umututsikazi, ari we uhora umuhagazeho, abana be barishe, ku buryo kenshi nahoraga muri urwo rugo kandi nanjye ndi umwana. Rero ntabwo byari byoroshye kugira abantu witaho nawe wari uwo kwitabwaho. Njye nibuka ndangiza secondaire, ntabwo nahise nkomeza kaminuza kuko narangije secondaire abo bana bari mu wa kabiri, abo bana b'abakobwa babiri. Undi w'icyo gihe murumuna wanjye we twamufataga nk'umuntu nyine turindiriye ko azapfa kuko nta kintu na kimwe yari ashoboye. Abo bana babiri b'abakobwa nkirangiza secondaire navuze yuko ngiye gushaka amafaranga nkakora kugira ngo basi nibura bajye bagira umuntu basura ku ishuri mu gihe bari muri interina. Rero nahise ntangira gukora, ntangira gushaka amafaranga, ariko nkamenya ko ku munsi wo gusura ku mashuri bigagaho bigaga ahantu hatandukanye, ariko inzira ari zimwe. Umwe yigaga hitwa Ikiramuruzi, undi yiga hagati ya Rwamagana na Kayonza ahitwa Ikabare. So nafata buri munsi nategaga bisi nkajya gusura abo bana bombi ku munsi wo gusura. Hari igihe rimwe na rimwe iminsi yahuraga cyangwa ntihura, ariko nkamakinga sure ko nibura basi hari umuntu wabagezeho, nta wundi muntu wari uhari wo kubageraho uretse jyewe. Rero nsubiye inyuma gato nkiga muri secondaire, nize ahantu Nyamirambo mu Frere muri Saint Joseph, ngira ngo Kamatara arahazi, ahitwa kuri Eripe kuri Saint Joseph, niho narangije secondaire. Njya nibuka nabaye inkubaganye nyuma yaho ngaho, ariko nkakubagana nshaka ibintu binteza imbere kugira ngo mbashe gukemura ibyo bibazo byose. Twataga saa saba z'amanywa. Noneho umunsi umwe mu batante twabanaga yari afite taxi minibus. Umushoferi we mubwira yuko ninzajya mva ku ishuri anyigisha imodoka. Mubwira ko ninzajya mva ku ishuri azajya yigira muri gahunda ze, ngiye nkatwara iyo modoka. Noneho najyaga ku ishuri nambaye t-shirt imbere y'ishati, nava mu ishuri nkahita mvanamo ishati nkayishyira muri marete, nkasigara na t-shirt. Kenshi nasohokaga uwo mushoferi ahagaze imbere y'ikigo, cyangwa se nkahagarara gato ku cyapa kugira ngo ahansange agiye, nkahita njya kuri vora nkatangira gutwara taxi Nyamirambo. Umunsi umwe umufrere umwe yari préfet des études ngira ngo arazaza gutega iyo bisi, yicara iruhande rwanjye. Ubwoba buranyica, ndavuga none ahita arambwira ngo bite sha, ndabwiye ni byiza. Natse imodoka ndagenda, tugeze muri gare avamo. Ku munsi ukurikiye anshyira kuri assemblement, arambwira ngo mwigize ibirara. Ndaceceka, ariko aho iryo shuri ryari riri naho twari dutuye twari mu mudugudu umwe, hari munsi yo mu rugo. Weekend ikurikiye duhurira mu muganda n'uwo mufrere. Ndangiye nabwira frere ndashaka guherekeza, ndamuherekeza, tuva twakoreye umuganda twerekeza ku ishuri. Ngenda ndamubwira amateka yanjye, ariko nyine ubona yari yarampamagaye. Naramuherekeje, maze kumuherekeza kuwa mbere arambwira ngo aranshaka muri office. Ndagenda nsanga yateguye ibaruwa yo kunyirukana. Noneho mu kigo hari hashyinguyemo abantu bishwe na genocide. ibaruwa arayandika, amaze kuyandika arayimpa, ndagenda mubaza ese frere reka nkubaze bari abantu bashyinguye hano kuki bahashyinguye, arangije ndabubwira ntibazize iki, bararwaye barapfa byagenze gute, ambwira ngo bazize jenoside. Ndabubwira se niba harimo ababyeyi utekereza ko nta bana bari bafite, arambwira ngo ushatse kuvuga iki, ni cyangwa niba harimo abana utekereza ko nta babyeyi bari bafite, ahita arambaza ngo ushatse kuvuga iki. Ndabubwira nti rero ngiye biriya wambonyemo ntago ari ubundi burara, ni ukwirwanaho kugira ngo mbashe gufasha barumuna banjye, nta wundi burara. Niba wumva wanyirukana nta kibazo, ndashaka ikindi kigo ariko nta wundi burara wundi. Ahita arambwira ngo ngaho nsobanurire, ndamusobanurira, ahita afata ya leta arayica. Kuva icyo gihe tuba inshuti ku buryo frere aho twahuriraga hose yamfataga nyine nk'umuntu w'inshuti, na nyuma yo kurangiza segonderi twakomeje kuba inshuti. Rero hari ubuzima twabayemo atari uko tugomba kubamo, atari n'uburara, atari n'ibindi bindi. Hari abandi bagiye muri ibyo, nibura giye natwaraga iyo taxi, hari abandi babaga bari mu biyobyabwenge, hari ababaga bari mu matabi, hari ababaga bari mu mayoga, abo bose turabazi gira ngo nabandekeye aho ngaho.
Thank you again, Mugabo. To answer my question, I could just say that he had no choice. He had to do it. He had to take care of his younger sibling, and not only his little brother, but he had also two little cousins, two little girl cousins who survived. So he took on the responsibility of taking care of them. Mugabo's story is a little bit particular because remember when they killed almost his entire family, he witnessed the killings. So the people who survived who were not in the area, they referred to him as the storyteller. So everybody kept asking him, how did my people die? How did my people die? Did you see them killing my parents? For a period of, and at one point it became so overwhelming for him. As a result of a trauma, he became nonverbal for a whole year. He couldn't talk. It was hard for him to go back to school because he just couldn't talk. He shared the story of how when he finished high school, he did not go back, he did not go straight to university because he decided that he's gonna go and look for a job so that he can take care of the two cousins and his younger brother. His younger brother survived in a very difficult way. He shared that his younger brother was actually killed and was buried alive, but then the rain fell. Was a period of rainy. It was a rainy season, so the rain kind of took out the dirt, and that's how he survived. But he was very injured emotionally and physically. So not only he had to take care. He lived with the trauma. He had to take care of his younger siblings and cousins who were also traumatized in a very grateful way. But he did it, and he shared that today his younger brother made it. He's married and he has a child. So, well done. Sandra, coming to you, you shared, which is a very common, again, another common trait with Mugabo. You both shared that you come from very loving families. You, the little time that you had with them, they gave you great love. And in a period of 3 months, you found yourself as alone on this earth without the love that you grew up with. Share with us, how was that like?
Urakoze Nicole. Genocide irangiye maze kumenya ko iwacu bose babishe, nagize amahirwe yo kwakirwa mu muryango ku monkre wanjye bari bavuye hanze, bari abantu ntari nzi ariko nanzi ko tubafite, ngira ngo hari benshi bafite histoire imeze kimwe n'iyanjye, hera amafamiye twari dufite yagiye hanze, yahunze ajya hanze. Navuga ko ari umugisha nagize kuko wenda byari kurangira mbaye mayibobo mbaye iki cyangwa ndi ku muhanda, ariko nagiye umugisha wo kwakirwa muri uwo muryango. Ariko nubwo nakiriwe, cya kintu cyo kurokoka njyenyine cyakomeje kugendana nanjye. so numvaga urwo rugo nakiriwemo ari ndi umushyitsi ariko uzageraho agataha, ariko hasigara ikibazo gikomeye cyane ngo nzataha hehe. So byakomeje kuba urugendo rurerure, kumva mu mutwe hambwira ngo uzataha hehe, uri umushyitsi uzataha ariko aho gutaha akabura. Nakomeje no kurwana n'ubwo buzima. Icyari kigoye cyane muri ako kanya, cyangoye kurushaho, ntabwo nabonye umwanya wo kugrivinga abanjye, ahubwo narwanaga no kumenya ngo ndabona aho ntaha, mu mutwe numva nzageraho ngataha. Ariko nyuma y'imyaka yose 31, uretse amahirwe nagize yo kongera kubona undi muryango, na n'ubu ntabwo aho hantu haraboneka ho gutaha muri ba bantu. Nta nubwo hazaboneka, unfortunately ntihazaboneka. So navuga ko ubuzima butarimo abo bantu bose, mumva ko rwari urugo runini, rurimo ibyishimo, rurimo ambiance ihoraho, rufite byose, ntago byanyoroheye. Ariko kuko nari mfite inshingano ikomeye cyane yo guhagarara mu mwanya wabo, naravuze ngo ngomba kurwana uru rugamba ndi njyenyine. Ku myaka mikeya, ntazi uko bigomba kugenda, ntazi uko ngomba kwifata, ariko numvaga ko hari inshingano ikomeye mfite, inshingano yo gukomeza ubwo buzima. Navuga yuko nabayeho, nahise njya mu mashuri, ndakomeza kwiga, ariko icyo kintu cya emptiness kiri kinini muri njyewe. Donc navuga ko silence yasakuzaga cyane muri njye kuruta induru, kuko hari amajoro namaraga ntasinziriye, ndi kwibaza. Icyangoye cyane si no kuvuga ngo barishwe kuko bari bamaze kwicanwa n'abandi benshi, ko ari kuvuga ngo baguye hehe. Burya kubura umuntu biroroshye, kuba wamuherekeza cyangwa se wamurwaza ukamushyingura, ariko kuba uzi ko abantu bose babishe utazi aho bari, utazi aho biciwe, nicyo cyangoye cyane kuruta ibindi. So navuga rero ko urugendo rwo kubabura rwabaye urugendo ruremereye, rwanyafekise mu buryo bwose bushoboka. Urumva nari mbuze inkomoko, kubura identity ni ikintu gikomeye cyane. So nari mbuze inkomoko, nari mbuze urukundo, nari mbuze protection y'ababyeyi, nari mbuze byose, ariko nagombaga gukomeza ubwo buzima. So navuga ko butari bworoshye, nashatse iyindi nzira nta yindi, kwakira bigoye, kwakira kuko niyo option yonyine nari mfite yo kwakira ibimbayeho kandi bigoye. Ubwo rero navuga yuko icyangoye cyane ni uko gutakaza inkomoko, byarangoye cyane na n'ubwo bikingoye, ariko narakomeje ndarwana urugamba, nishakamo imbaraga, kugeza kuri uno munota. Rero navuga yuko ntabwo byari byoroshye, hari aho nageraga nkacika intege, kandi nkumva ndi njyenyine kandi ndi muri benshi. Sinzi niba byumva kuba wenyine kandi uri muri benshi, ugasanga hari amahistwari nkeneye, ariko nkasanga mfite make cyane agarukira kuri ya myaka nari mfite nkiri kumwe nabo. Nkasanga hari ibibazo nibaza ari njye ugomba kubyisubiza, nkasanga hari amateka nifuza kumenya, nkongera nkagaruka nkasanga ni njye ugomba kuyisubiza. So ni ikintu gikomeye cyane. Hariho kuno abanyarwanda bajya bavuga ngo uwo wanga umwifuriza ibibi, sinzi ko n'uwo nanga namwifuriza ibyambayeho. Ntawe nabyifuriza, ntabwo ari byiza, ntabwo ari ibintu wakwifuriza umuntu, kuko urishaka ukibura. Uko ubyutse mu gitondo ufite ikintu kigomba kukwibutsa ko you are alone mu buzima donc ni ikintu gikomeye cyane. So turaza gukomeza ariko ntabwo rwari urugendo rworoshye, rwari urugendo ruremereye, amarangamutima apfuye, akomeretse pe. Donc byari nk'igisebe gihora kijejeta kidakira, ariko bwarakomeje.
Sandra says that she was, after the genocide, she was welcomed in one of her uncle's home. Her uncle who lived outside of Rwanda. After the genocide, a lot of people who lived outside of Rwanda who were in exile came back. So her uncle's family welcomed her. Although she was welcomed in her family, she felt like she was a guest and she was there temporarily. And at one point she had to go home. The greatest question was, what is home now? Where am I gonna go? After 31 years, although she built her own family, she says that she still lives with that question, where is home? Bear with me, guys, this is hard. Sandra says that she lives with questions, and she lived with those questions at a very young age. She lost her origins, she lost her references, she lost love, she lost protection. She says, one particular thing, she says, every time, even though she would be surrounded with people, she always felt alone. And she says it's a constant reality in her life, no matter how many years it has been. Sandra says the only way she had to deal with is to accept. She accepted what happened to her, and that's how she kept on going. Sandra says that in the Rwandan there is a proverb that says, I don't even know if it's in Rwandan, but you know how you say, I cannot wish this to my worst enemy? In reality, she says, what happened to me, I will not wish it to anyone. I will not wish it to the worst enemy. It's a constant wound that she lives with, and she still carries on 31 years later. There is no word that I can use, and I'm not going to pretend. Daima, we said you are a symbol of hope. You are a symbol that says that it is possible. But share with us, what is the experience of? We all say that we were raised by parents who had a lot of trauma. How is it to be a child of a person who is a soul survivor? How is it? Share with us.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like this, right? Where you sit down and you hear all these stories, and I shouldn't even say stories because they're testimonies. They're lived experiences. But for someone who wasn't born, they start to become stories, right? They start to become something like, for lack of a better word, like a movie, like a book that I'm reading, right? It's so extreme and it's so traumatic that it doesn't seem real a lot of the times. And so, yeah, growing up with a mom that was a soul survivor, I didn't know what I didn't have. I was talking to my husband about this. Life was just life. It was just me and her for a very long time. My dad was still back home. And, we didn't have anyone. Didn't have a grandparents. Didn't have an auntie. Didn't have cousins. It didn't have anyone, right? And so a lot of the times when she had to go to work, I would stay by myself. So, nor did I have any siblings. So I was just raising myself. So I think a lot of what Sandra said is it really resonates with me because it's, you know, I'm always alone, right? And then I think I was content with it, you know, because my mom, I know a lot of you guys know her, Mama Daima, she's the best. And so she didn't make it feel like we were missing something. She didn't make it feel like, I could tell she was traumatized because even the way she raised me was with a lot of like, I just want you to be with me. I just want you to be mine, right? I was her only family that she had. And for her to move all the way here to Canada without anyone else, I don't even know how she did that. Because I feel that's also traumatic. Like you're leaving somewhere where everybody that you've known, your whole family was killed, to come to a strange country that you know no one in. I don't know how she did that. But growing up, slowly, as you know, I started to age. I started to understand that these stories are not just stories. These were her lived experiences. And it's hard to explain because there's only such a way that you can empathize with somebody. Yeah, it's hard to explain because you want to empathize with them, but to you it kind of sounds like a story. For a lot of people like me who grew up here or who were born outside of the country, you know, or weren't there during the genocide. Like, yeah, they lost people. Yeah, I lost people, but you don't really understand what actually happened because you weren't there. And so I think I grew up always being like, how can I help my mom? How can I even understand what she went through? How can I be I had to be a good daughter, I think is really what I had to grow up to be like. To be somebody that didn't cause her any trouble, that didn't act out, that didn't rebel, that just was, hey mom, what do you need? What do you want? What do you know? And also I just really learned to suppress a lot of my trauma because how can I have a tantrum when she lost her mom, her dad, her entire siblings? Like, it seems very trivial. You know what I mean? Mom, you know, somebody's bullying me at school. Like, she just came from Rwanda. She just came from somewhere with nobody there. Like, it's very trivial. My experiences in my life, even my own personal trauma, my own personal mistakes or own personal hurts or pain seemed very, very trivial because of what she went through. Because I couldn't be like, Mom, today I was sad. I'm sure I could have, but she was so hurt. And I think she was still trying to process it and live life that I didn't feel, not that she wasn't in a safe place, don't hear what I'm saying, but I felt like I didn't want to be a burden to her. I think that's how I can explain it. I didn't want to be a burden to my mom because she had just lived through so much and survived through so much. I just wanted to be a good girl for her. And as I continued to grow up, you know, thankfully we were accepted by a family here or in Quebec, and, you know, they became, like you guys were saying, like the grandparents, the siblings, the cousins. And that little family showed me what it was like to have a dad and a mom in one place, showed me what it was like to have siblings, showed me what it was like to rely on one another. I didn't know what that was like. I didn't know how it looked like. It showed me that my mom could go somewhere and not drag me along in the cold winters on the bus because we didn't have a car. And, you know, and so I think I also just growing up, I think I also saw people of my generation that were born after 94, or just really on the cusp. I think a lot of the trauma that we internalized, that we weren't talking to our parents about, it resulted in either us shutting down, right, not speaking to our parents, us choosing a different path for ourselves. A lot of the times it's us probably just finding coping mechanisms because we weren't able to speak to our parents, right? A lot of us, we ended up turning to drinking, to drugs, not going to school because, you know, your parents didn't go to school in this country. Like, how are they going to help you? You know, like, how are they going to help you with the math and the algebra that, I don't know if they had math and algebra in Rwanda, and I know you guys did, but you know, I don't know if it was the same. Actually, my mom was really good. She's an accountant, so she did help me in math. But like I said, we just didn't bring our problems. I just didn't bring my problems to her. I did a lot of it on my own. But I am very blessed to, in the midst of it, she was very gracious and she was very loving. And I think that love and that, and she showed me the Lord, I think most of it. She really, I think she had no one else to turn to, that she turned to Jesus. And she found comfort in him. And because she found comfort in Jesus, she taught me Jesus. And I too then generationally found comfort in him. And that's who I could rely on. And I really do think that's the reason why I could have easily went and partied, and I did party and lived life, but I got out of it. But I could have easily stayed in it, right? I could have easily headed a really, really bad path. And that is also why I think my heart is so passionate about just even justice, just loving people, being really family-oriented. You know, Sandra talked about how, you know, it is hard to lose somebody. It's hard for somebody that you know to die, but it's also even hard. It's an unexplainable pain when you don't know where they're buried or you don't know where they fell, right? And so my mom also didn't know where they fell. And so I remember when my dad passed, she was so adamant about having like a funeral space and a whole thing. And I was like, dude, he's not here. And I was like, and I remembered, I was like, whoa, like, it would be her, it's like her safe place. She knows where he fell. Like she can go visit him today if she wanted to in his grave. And I remember, like, she doesn't have that with her siblings and her parents and her cousins and her aunties. And I was like, oh, you can't even fathom that. Like, I can't even. Anyways, so I don't know if that was making sense, but yeah.
Thank you, Daima. Ndasemura gato ku byo Daima avuze. Daima avuze ko kurerwa n'umubyeyi wahuye n'amateka nk'ayo, nawe icyo ahuje na Sandra ni uko akenshi we na mama we bari bonyine. Daima avuga ngo abona yumvaga nta espace afite yo kuba yagira nawe bimubabaza, kuko mama we yarababaye bikabije bihambaye. Ni gute yajya kumubwira ngo ku ishuri abana bambwiye nabi, nababaye ku ishuri, mu gihe azi neza umubabaro mama we agendana nawo. Avuga ngo nta yindi shwa yari afite usibye kuba umwana mwiza, kugira ngo atagira ibindi bibazo yongerera mama we. Daima, we all can testify that you did it. For the interest of time, I'm going to ask one last question, but I will open it to have one of you answer it. The question that I wanted to ask, is healing possible? What is the healing journey look like? I think I'm going to give it to Sandra because she has the microphone. Sandra, could you share with us, and I think it's something that you maybe have in common or some common traits with the rest of the panel, but what does healing look like, or is healing a possibility?
Ni ikibazo gikomeye, ni ikibazo navuga ko mu buryo bumwe cyasubizwa n'abantu bafite ubumenyi burenze mu bijyanye n'imitekerereze y'abantu, nibo babisubiza neza. Ariko mvugiye kuri experience yanjye, healing, kuba healed completely ntabwo navuga ko bishoboka. Ariko birashoboka yuko ubuzima bwakomeza. Ubuzima burakomeza kuko ndi umuhamya ko nyuma y'imyaka 31 ubuzima burakomeza, ko ntafashe choice yo kujya mu bindi bibi. Ubuzima burakomeza, ariko kuvuga ngo urakira nko kuri njyewe navuga yuko naba mbeshye, ariko ikintu numva gishoboka ahubwo ni ukwemera ko amarangamutima yawe yakubiswe, donc ko hari aho uko byagenda kose yakomeretse kandi cyane. So navuga ko ni ukwemera ko umubabaro n'ibyishimo bigendana. Sinzi ko byumva, donc umubabaro n'ibyishimo bigomba kugendana, kandi navuga yuko biri okay to not be okay. So ukemera yuko ukomeretse, ariko kandi ugashaka izindi nzira. So wenda ntanzeho gatoya akantu gato cyane. Umwaka ushize nahisemo inzira yo kujya, kuko mumva nakomeje kujya muri icyo kintu. Akenshi iyo wabuze abantu bawe hari ikintu cya dinayo ugumamo, ukawumva hari igihe bazaza, hari igihe byazagera ukabona. Niga muri segonderi gatoya, nigeze menya we twageze kubiganira bikubwiye gatoya, nigaga mu ishuri ry'abihaye Imana, noneho tuza ku Gikabwayi muri Bazilika. Mbona umwana w'umuhungu arahagurutse, kari akana k'agahungu mbona kari mu kigero kingana n'icyo petit frère wanjye yari arimo. Twari dufite amategeko y'ababikira yo kudahaguruka mu misa, yo kugira gute, ariko yose narayishe. Ndavuga ngo ndamukurikira kuko nabonaga ari musaza wanjye. Nabonaga ari musaza wanjye. Iki kintu cyo kutabashyingura, cyo kutababona bapfa ariko ubizi ko badahari, kikugumamo. So ubwo narahagurutse ndamukurikira, ndamubaza urinde, kuko nabonaga mvuga nti kuko ari mutoya, wenda yagiye ahantu atoragurwa na famiye, ananirwa kuvuga iwabo, abura identite ye nk'ibindi byose, noneho baramufata. Nabonaga ari petit frère wanjye. Akana karambwira ati no, ntabwo ndi petit frère wawe, twege twavuye i Burundi. Mu by'ukuri ntabwo cyari ikintu kiba, ariko numvise mbabaye. Ndavuga ibi ni byo tugendana, byo kumva yuko abantu bazageraho bakaza. So nyuma y'imyaka 30 rero uko nabigenje, nahisemo kwemera yuko koko noneho nsinzwe. Nemera gufata urugendo, ndagenda njye Kigali, nta kintu kinjyanye, njya gukora ubushakashatsi bwaho iwacu baguye. Ndagenda nsubira ku musozi hamwe nakomerekeye, ndagenda njya gushakisha amakuru, mpera kuri petit frère, kuri grand frère, kuri mukuru wanjye, kuri papa, kuri mama, nshakisha urugendo banyuzemo. Nifashisha abantu harimo abatarahigwaga, harimo abarescape bagendanye nabo muri urwo rugendo rwo kwicwa. Ndagenda bampa amakuru, ndayandika, ndabifata byose. Ndangije numva umutima wanjye uraruhutse. Ndavuga nti uku niko kubashyingura kwanjye. Ndagenda nshyira indabo aho bambwiye baguye, njya ku nzibutso zitandukanye, Ndera, Kibagabaga n'ahandi hose. Ahantu hose bambwiye ati urugendo rwaroro, ndagenda mashyira indabo. Ndavuga nti ngomba kubyakira, ariko ntago navuga ko ari ikintu byuka mu gitondo ngo kibeho, n'urugendo. So navuga ko healing it's a process, ntabwo ari ikintu byuka mu gitondo ngo gikunde. Navuga yuko kwemera ko amarangamutima yakomeretse, hanyuma none ukemera ubufasha. Ukemera ubufasha, ukagira inshuti za hafi, ukashaka abantu bari professional bakagufasha. Hanyuma noneho kandi ukaba surrounded n'abantu beza. Hanyuma ikindi navuga kubemera Imana ugasenga. So navuga rero ko ari uko nguko navuga urugendo rwa healing rwashoboka, ariko kuvuga ko ubyuka mu gitondo twifuza bishobotse yaba ari buto dukanda tukabyuka twakize, ariko amarangamutima yacu yarakomeretse cyane ku buryo bitakunda ko abyuka mu gitondo ngo akire. Ariko kwiga kubana n'ubwo bumuga, nikabyita ubumuga kuko nibaza ko bidateye isoni, amarangamutima yarakomeretse. So no kwiga kubana nabyo, ariko kandi ntuhereyo. Makoze.
Thank you, Sandra. Sandra shares that saying that healing is possible to her, she says no. The only possible thing is to learn how to live with it. A particular for Sandra, particularly in her testimony, which she shares with Daima's mom, is that she was not able to bury her family. She couldn't find where they put them. So that is a reality that she lived with for a very, very long time. She lived in denial. She kept thinking about maybe one day they will appear, maybe they will come back. There was an instant where she was at school. She attended a Catholic school, and they were in a mass. So she saw a young boy who looked like he would be almost the same age as her little brother, and she got up and followed him, thinking that maybe that's my little brother. Unfortunately, it wasn't. So to just learn to accept it and to be surrounded by good people, if possible, get professional help. And for those who believe, refuge in God also helps.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
Sorry. Also, I think even when she was talking about the healing, I do feel like those of you guys who are survivors and who do have kids, to just speak to them about what happened, to keep recounting your story, to keep recounting your parents' story, your siblings, the people that fell, the people that were killed, and to remember that there's hope. I think when my son was born, I saw a different light in my mom's eyes. I feel like she just came back to life. And so I think I just want to even just remind you that there is hope, that you guys are here, you survived for a reason, for such a time as this. And the seed that's going to come from you guys, your children are going to make you proud. Your children are going to look up to you. Your children are going to say that we had the best mom and dad. We had the best parents because look at what they survived. Look what they went through and I'm here. And so I just want to encourage you guys in that to keep on loving on your kids. And I know in the Rwandese culture, we're very, tatouage. We're like, But I just encourage you guys to be vulnerable with your children, because once you guys are vulnerable with us, it's going to help us to even open up. It's going to help me. It would have helped me to tell my mom, like, hey, I'm hurt today, or what you just said, how you spoke to me was really painful. But there is hope. Please keep sharing your stories, because we need those stories. Because once you guys are old and you die at a very, very old age, in the hundreds, somebody's going to need to pass on that legacy. Somebody's going to need to pass on, who our grandparents was and who our aunties were and who our cousins were. And so just keep sharing and keep being open and keep loving yourself.
Perfect way of ending this panel. I'm sorry, Mugabo, we're going to have to keep going because of time. I want us to do this. In our culture, in the time of this, we refrain from clapping our hands. But as these two wonderful people regain their seats, I want us to stand as acknowledging and thanking them for sharing and being vulnerable with us. So please arise. Seats. Mushobora kujya kwicara. Now you may be seated. Thank you, everyone. We are a little bit behind the schedule, but I am sure everybody in the room can understand why. Unfortunately, we don't have time for break, so to light up the mood, I'm going to welcome Pasi. She's gonna grace us with a song, and we will all be able to regain, to come back.
Ngiye kuririmba indirimbo yitwa Ababyeyi, ni indirimbo yaririmbwe n'umuhanzi Cecile Kayirebwa. Nayitekerejeho kuko nasanze hari abantu benshi bakeneye kubwirwa ngo humura cyangwa se impore. Abo ni abafite imyaka 31 kuzamura cyangwa se 50, bari abana icyo gihe. Uko tubishoboye tujye tubabwira ngo impore. Babyeyi mubyeyi mwe, nimumfashe nihuriza abana, nihuriza abana, nihuriza imfubyi zahaziza abagome abicanyi, bakoze amarorerwa, nihoreza nawe inimba n'ishavu n'agahinda, badahogora naje. Twihuriza nawe, twihuriza abana, twihuriza abana, twihuriza nawe, twihuriza abana, twihuriza abana. Warima w'ishuke n'udukuru twabakiri mu mugongo, bakije ubwana babakuye ku ibere, babakuye no mu nda z'abanyina, babajugunya ku gasozi. Harimo n'abangavu n'uduhungu dushaka gusoreka, bavukijwe ubwana. Abakigira amaboko baharebye amaguru baratema, babajugunya ku gasozi. Twihoreza abana, twihoreza abana, twihoreza abana, twihoreza abana, twihoreza abana, twihoreza abana. Ninde wamikimiga n'atanga guturika nkarira, nari naje kubahoza, ahubwo murekure icyo kimiga, nawe marira wavunga mu maso, ndayabahanagura, mbegeke mu gituza, murakora ibyo bisage byabanyu. Babyeyi mubyeyi mwe, nimumfashe nihuriza abana, nihuriza abana, twihuriza abana, twihuriza abana, twihuriza abana, twihuriza abana,
Thank you, Pasi. Allow me to say this. I know the panel that we just heard, it sounds surreal, sounds like a horror movie, but it's reality. The people who are sitting in this room, Sandra and Mugabo and Daima, their stories are not particular just to them. It's a shared common experience with so many people in this room and many people out there. I want to encourage each one of us. Please be kind to one another. The person sitting next to you, you don't know what they saw, you don't know what they're going through. I implore with you, please be kind to us. It's not easy. And also to the survivors who are here, those who are children, those of us who were really young at the time, today we are grown. Like Sandra said, a lot of people here have questions, and they're the only people who can answer them. They have nobody to answer. Let us rely on one another. You are not alone, Sandra. You're really not alone. Same thing goes to Mugabo. You're not alone. You are with people who may have the same traumas as you, but you're not alone. Now, I am going to call our keynote speaker of the day, Dr. Tuyisenge Germaine. I will briefly introduce her. Dr. Tuyisenge survived the genocide at 9 years old. She was left to fend for herself for a period of 2 months at least, after she was abandoned by the neighbors that her mother trusted that they would keep her safe. Her incredible journey from survivor to global health leader will be featured in her upcoming book, Rwanda's Echoes: 100 Stories of Survivor and Resilience. Tuyisenge holds a PhD in public health from Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. So welcome, Dr. Tuyisenge.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you, the Edmonton community, for inviting me. It's really hard to find words. Like Nicole mentioned, it's hard to be in this space, but we have to. It's our responsibility as survivors, as Rwandans, as friends of Rwanda, from what we just heard as testimonies, because these are stories of what people lived, and also the responsibility for those who didn't survive. For me to be here today, sometimes when I was preparing for this theme, countering denial, the role of survivor narratives in combating genocide denial, I'm almost in denial myself that this is something we have to talk about when we know the reality and the truth of what survivors went through. But at the same time, again, it's our responsibility to honor those who we lost, but also to stand in solidarity with the survivors and to make sure that what happened doesn't happen ever again, but also to help the survivors in their healing journey. One of the quick stories that I can share of how I came to the project that I'm working on collecting 100 stories of genocide survivors, was when I ran into a bookstore in Ontario a few months after I arrived in Canada, just almost 15 years ago. And I saw this book titled, "We Wish to Inform You That Tomorrow We Will Be Killed with Our Families." It really hit me so hard because I remember vividly these very same words spoken to where I was with my family and our neighbors on April 9th, 1994. And when I saw this book, then it was a call for me to realize that as many stories that we have as survivors, we have a lot in common, but at the same time, I know that we have people lived through different experiences, and it's our responsibility to correct them, to make sure, like Daima mentioned, at some point we won't be here. It's a reality. I was 9 years old in the genocide, and I was at the age where I can remember most of what happened, and although I didn't understand what was happening, but I remember everything almost. Not that there are people who were older than me who don't remember, unfortunately, or fortunately, because of our brains cope different ways. But for me, I remember most of what was happening or what happened. But I also know that at some point I won't be able to remember. 35 years later, I won't be able to remember what happened. So I came up with the idea of putting stories together, putting testimonies together, so that it can be a way of really honoring those who parted, but also those who survived, and to make sure that their stories, these testimonies are actually not stories like Daima mentioned, but they are truth of what people lived and a way to honor them. So Rwanda's Echoes 100 Stories of Survival and Resilience is a collection of these testimonies from 100 survivors to represent the diversity of what people went through across the country, across different ages. As we heard, stories of children, including the unborn, parents, grandparents, family members, people of all social economic classes across the country, what they lived through. Also, a way to represent the resilience of survivors and the journey to healing. Like Sandra mentioned, it's a journey and it's ongoing. So it's our way to make sure that these testimonies, they are alive. So I'm going to read a few of these testimonies that are part of the book. So I'm working with a team in Rwanda. We're working on 100 stories, like I mentioned, testimonies. And I'm going to, because of interest of time, I'm going to read 4 of them, testimonies. And these are from Eastern Province. And 2 are from men and 2 are from women. I just chose these stories because they represent some of what people who survived the genocide went through. The first testimony is entitled Shattered Face and Broken Spirit, a Survivor's Story. In the mid-80s, when I was in primary school, teachers made us line up by ethnicity, Hutu or Tutsi. I was the only Tutsi in my class, and that made me a target. The teacher would point me out and say to the others, "Look at him carefully. This is what a Tutsi looks like." My classmates laughed at me. I felt humiliated and deeply alone, even in a place that should have been safe. After finishing school, I went to the city, hoping for a better life. But things didn't get better. I was bullied and rejected there too. I had no choice but to return to my village. Just 1 week later, in April 94, the genocide began. I fled to Lake Muhazi to hide. I was terrified. I saw terrifying things. People being hunted and killed just because they were Tutsi. When the killers thought everyone was dead, they left. I came out of the water, badly injured and barely able to work. On the street, I saw a young boy and begged him for water. He said he'd only help me if I paid him, or he would call militia to finish me off. I was too weak to fight or beg. I told him to call them. I just want everything to end. The militia came. When they saw the state I was in, they said I was already dying and not worth the effort. They left me behind. That was when I heard another voice, a Tutsi man hiding nearby. He urged me to go to Rwamagana Hospital. I managed to get there, even though I was barely alive. But even at the hospital, I wasn't safe. The militia would come and kill Tutsi patients. But once again, my parents saved me. They thought I wouldn't survive anyway, so they left me alone. 3 agonizing months of recovery followed. Every moment felt like a fight against death. When I finally left the hospital, my face was disfigured. I couldn't stand to look at myself in the mirror. I avoided my reflection. Even little children who are usually full of innocence were scared of me. I felt like a walking symbol of tragedy. I was alive, but I was trapped in fear, shame, and deep loneliness. It wasn't until 2014, with the support from Genocide Survivors Fund, that things began to change. I received reconstructive surgery. That operation didn't just restore part of my face, it gave me back a sense of strength. It reminded me that healing is possible even after so much pain. I still carry the scars, but I speak today because I survived, and I will never stop telling the truth. This is the first testimony that we have from Eastern Province in Rwanda. The second testimony is entitled, Paid for Protection, Trapped for Massacre. My uncle's fatal deception in the genocide. As the genocide began, my uncle, a respected businessman, tried to protect Tutsi people in our village. He gave the militia a large amount of money, hoping they would spare the Tutsi if they were all brought together. The militia pretended to agree. They told my uncle that if the Tutsi were gathered in one place, they would be safe. But it was a lie. The next day, the militia turned that gathering into a trap. Everyone who came thinking they would be protected was killed. I lost my entire family. My uncle, his wife, their children were all burned alive in that house. My sister, her husband, and their child died with them. My brother, his wife, and their 5 children were thrown into Lake Muhazi. Only one of those children's body was found. That child is now buried in our village genocide memorial. My younger brother, who was a teacher, was killed too, along with his family. My older brother and another younger brother were also murdered. During the genocide, I hid in thick bushes nearby. I saw terrible things, but I stayed hidden. Eventually, a kind family friend took me in and kept me safe until the RPF in Otanyi arrived and ended the killings. And the third testimony that I would want to share is about a killing that happened in the church. When the genocide against the Tutsi began, my mother told me to flee to a church in another village. She believed I might be safe there because I was the only one in our family with a national identity card, and it said I was Hutu. Since no one in that village knew me, we hoped I would not be identified as Tutsi. When I arrived, the church was full of other Tutsi, men, women, and children, all terrified. We did not know how long we could stay hidden. The militia had already found out about our hiding. 2 days later, the militia came with soldiers. They attacked us with guns and grenades. People screamed, begged for mercy, but no one was spared. When the shooting stopped, they used machetes to kill everyone who was still alive. I remembered my ID and showed it to the soldier, hoping it would save me. He looked at me closely, unsure if I really looked like a Hutu or not. They questioned me again and again. I said I was Hutu each time. But instead of letting me go, they beat me and threw stones at me. Somehow I escaped and crawled among the dead bodies in the church. I stayed hidden there for days. Later, I found a nearby house and knocked on the door. I lied, saying I had followed the grown group and ended up at the church by mistake. I told them I was Hutu. They believed me, and they let me stay until the RPF forces arrived and stopped the genocide. Afterwards, I returned home, and that's when I learned the truth. My mother and my siblings, 3 of them, all of them, had been burned alive in our house. Others were thrown into Lake Muhazi. I was the only one who survived. And the last testimony I would like to share is entitled, Birthing Amidst Chaos, Tragic Loss in Cold Waters. In my village of Muhazi, the killings started in the middle of April 1994. My husband and I, both Tutsi, took our 2 children and went seeking refuge from a Hutu neighbor who turned us away, leaving us with nowhere to hide. I was heavily pregnant but had to carry the youngest of my children on my back as my husband carried the older one. Desperate, we decided to seek shelter at the mayor's office, hoping they would protect us. Little did we know that the killings were engineered by those in leadership positions. As we approached the office, we saw smoke rising from burning houses across the hill, a grim sign of the expanding violence. When we arrived, we found other Tutsis gathered there, and we were told that we couldn't stay there and that there were roadblocks by militia, and we would not be able to go anywhere far. Suddenly, a grenade exploded, scattering us in terror. It was the last time I saw my husband and our child who was with him. With a toddler on my back, I fled into the bushes, each step weighted with fear and despair. One of the heaviest memories I carry from that time is the pain my child endured as he stumbled through the undergrowth. I tried to comfort my child by breastfeeding him, but the hunger and fear persisted. At dawn, I sought refuge with another neighbor who hid me for a few days, but turned me away later on for fear of being killed for hiding me. The same neighbor revealed the fate of my husband and my child, crushing what little hope remained. As the militia whistles heralded another day of killing, I was forced to flee again. In the safety of a banana plantation not too far, I found solace among other women and their children, most of whom I knew from my village. As we hid, we could see militia dragging other victims to Lake Muhazi, and we could recognize some of the victims. They threw them into the lake with their hands tied at the back to ensure they did not swim to save themselves. A couple of days later, we were discovered by the militia, and we were herded back to the mayor's office. The militia, with the military's approval, planned to drown us in the lake, weighted down with stones that they put in our clothes to ensure we never surfaced. As I waded into the cold waters, my child strapped to my back slipped beneath the surface and died soon after we were thrown in the lake. All those women and children met a similar fate. I still can't comprehend how I survived. As night fell, the militia left the lake, and I got out of the water and hid in the nearby bushes, listening to the eerie calls of hippos from the lake. With my due date approaching, I resigned myself to death, unable to imagine giving birth alone in the wilderness without food nor clothes. But 3 days later, I gave birth amidst the chaos, my baby slipping from my grasp into the cold waters and dying in my hands moment after she was born. Numb to the pain and grief, I managed to cut the umbilical cord, but I was unable to get the placenta out at the moment. It came out a few later on its own. Swimming aimlessly, I finally reached the other side of the lake, my body weak and spent. With the last of my strength, I managed to walk in the dead of the night and sought refuge at a familiar house. There I was met with disbelief and terror because of how I looked. I had spent several weeks hiding in bushes and swimming in Muhazi, unaware that by that time, the RPF soldiers had already arrived in our village and the killings had stopped. I was taken to the hospital where they nursed me back to health. After months of rehabilitation, I was reunited with my mother, who endured a separate agonizing odyssey on her own and also miraculously survived. Together, we began the arduous journey of rebuilding our shattered lives, drawing strength from each other's resilience. I'm convinced that we survived so that we could tell the stories of the unspeakable horrors that we endured. These are only 4 stories from what survivors went through, what they lived, what they experienced, and what they are continuing to experience because of what they saw and what happened to them. And that's why these testimonies, they matter, because they are painful stories, painful lived experiences, but that's the reality that was lived. And this is a tragedy that is not distant, because when we talk about those we lost, we're talking about parents, about children, about loved ones, neighbors, teachers, classmates. We're talking about families, we're talking about communities, and we're talking about what the country went through, our land, our beloved land went through. So that's why it is important for us to keep these testimonies and protect the truth and protect the dignity and preserve the truth and resist erasure of what denial stands for. Because this is a living evidence of what happened. And for us to be able to even share these stories, I have to admit that this is really one of the toughest projects, actually the toughest project I've had to work on, because 31 years later, every commemoration, every year, I hear a story or a testimony that I'm in disbelief. I'm like, how is it possible that this person went through this, and how come that they're still alive and even able to talk about what happened to them? And I have to also mention that all these 4 testimonies and most of what we have been collecting, there are people actually who have never been able to share their testimonies, and some of them are sharing for the first time, and we've experienced even survivors who want to share part of what they lived and are still unable to share some of what they lived because it's still too painful for them. And that's, again, the reality of the survivors and what people went through. So it takes us back to the question of what is genocide denial, and why are we even talking about it, really, when we hear these testimonies and we know what the survivors went through. We know what the ones we lost went through. But then it's our responsibility again and again to call it out, to stand in the truth of what happened. Because for those who do denial, they do it deliberately. They know the truth. They know what happened. But their reality is ingrained in distortion, minimization, or erasure of the genocide against the Tutsi because of either political or economic or other reasons that we may or may not know behind this denial. It can also come in the form of rejecting the facts surrounding the genocide. For example, claiming that the genocide wasn't planned. As we saw from the testimonies, it was planned because even, like I remember, I was 9 years old, as much as I remember things, but it didn't make sense when they asked us in school to line up Tutsis and Hutu. So these are things that we lived and our parents lived through. Blaming the victims or disputing the numbers. We know sometimes see some in the news where they say, no, it was about 200,000 to 500. No, it was 1 million or more of people that we lost. And these are not numbers. These are people that we loved. These are families. These are neighbors. These are classmates. These are people who we lived with in our communities. Or also equating the genocide to a civil war. And this also is really one of the things that reopens the wounds, undermines the justice or the healing process that, again, as Sandra mentioned, is a process, is a long journey, but still it's a journey that we are on and we continue to be on, and also as part of the reconciliation. These survivors' testimonies expose denial, and they help us to understand and also to especially remind the younger generation about how the killings were organized. For example, asking people for their identity, like we saw from one of the testimonies. Also, the systemic murder of entire families, entire communities. The leaders being involved in the killings, being actually at the head of orchestrating the killings, or having women, children as part of the targeted groups because they are not combatant. So these are all signs of the genocide being well planned and well organized. And again, coming back to why testimonies matter, this is our way to preserve the memory of what happened and fill in the gaps to make sure that denial doesn't have space. Again, to inform future generations, making sure that what we know, what we lived through, that will be transmitted through generations as part of the reparation, as part of making sure that it doesn't happen again, and as part of resistance and justice, but also, really importantly, to honor those who didn't survive, and to humanize the statistics. Again, these are not just numbers, there are names, there are stories behind these numbers of the people that we loved and that we lost in the most tragic ways. Each testimony is a shield against forgetting. They humanize history and give voice to the silenced, whether it's the silenced the ones who were killed, and the silenced, the ones who can't speak, or the silencing people because if once denial is louder, then it's gonna silence the genocide survivors or the ones who know the stories, and we're not gonna we're not going to let that happen. Because we have evidence of what happened and the emotional and geographical and forensic facts that we have about the genocide. And it's important for us to resist forgetting and build resilience in our communities so that never again must be active and not symbol of what happened. We have to remember that if we do not tell these stories, someone else will, and they might tell them wrong. So there is a call for us to support and amplify survivor testimonies, and this is not a task for survivors, like I mentioned, so if I'm 40 years today and I can remember what happened, in the next 40 years, I would barely be able to remember everything the same way I remember now. But if younger people are able to transmit these stories, then we'll be able to make sure that these stories will stay alive for generations to come. And it's important for us to challenge misinformation in conversations and online, especially as we see denial growing in online spaces. So it's important for us all to take this task personally and make sure that we silence it as they would want to silence us, which they did, but they didn't manage to make it happen. So it's really a task that we have to make sure that we silence it whenever it happens and wherever it happens. And use storytelling in education, in museums, in schools, in memorials, in every space that we can reach, because from workplaces, from where we live in our communities, we all have opportunities to really share stories once we hear these stories, and to be able to share and to teach and to make sure that those who are around us learn. Because part of the denial is also there's an ignorance of people who just follow the mass and say, oh, this is what I saw online, people saying that actually there were not that many people who were killed. So it's important for us to really educate those around us as far as we can teach or can reach, to make sure that people know the truth of what happened. And lastly, each story we carry forward is a light in a world that too often forgets. So there's also part of us or our brains not forgetting, because it's human nature. By not telling these stories, we may forget. And even I remember, for example, when I was writing my own testimony, my own experience, I remember there were flashbacks of things that would come back, and I would say, oh, actually I had forgotten that this also happened. So it's really possible for us to forget things. So one of the ways that is going to help us, it's not easy, of course, that I'm saying this, that's not easy for everyone, but whenever we can, it's really important to share. It's really important to make sure that we don't forget and transmit this truth of what happened. And denial is not just about the past, it endangers the future again and again. It's not about just the past, not about the present. It's to making sure that in the future, what we saw, what happened to Rwanda doesn't happen ever again anywhere else in Rwanda or anywhere else in the world. And when the last survivor, the last quote I want to end with is that when the last survivor is gone, only the stories will remain. So may we honor them by telling the truth. I have a few resources for those interested in learning more about the genocide and about testimonies, but also knowing how they can be equipped to fighting denial wherever it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Germaine. I wish you could clap our hands, because this was such a beautiful presentation. But thank you. Thank you so much for accepting to come and share with us. It is very important that we educate. One thing that I want to mention, we have survivors. People survived the genocide against the Tutsi of Rwanda in 1994. But the perpetrators, I don't know how you call it, those who committed it, they are also still alive. So there are narrative stories out here, and it's not the truth. One of the reasons why we hope we organize these events is to tell our truth. It's not stories in the books that we read, it's what people lived. It's what they went through. As you come here and you grace us with your presence, we hope we gain an ally. Please help us to tell our truth. It is one thing that the Tutsi of Rwanda died, and the whole world watched it happen. The whole world watched it happen. It is another thing that the whole world still watch it happen when people are denying it. So it happened, we lived it, and we're here to tell our story and our truth. So thank you, Dr. Tuyisenge, for professionally dedicating your time to work towards educating people. Now we're going to also welcome another guest of ours, Gustave. I'll introduce Gustave briefly. Gustave is a friend of mine. Gustave is a member, used to be a member of our community. Gustave survived the genocide as a young child. Again, those who are young, they're old now, and they're the ones who are telling the stories. And luckily, people are still remembering what happened at that young age. So Gustave wrote a book. It's called The Power of Telling Our Stories. That's not what the book is called, but that's why it's written here. But anyways, Gustave will tell us briefly about his book and briefly about his journey as well. Welcome, Gustave. I will accompany Gustave.
Good afternoon. My name is Shina Rurinda, and we're here to talk about the power of telling our stories. Today's conversation is one that carries both weight and hope, and we're joined by Gustave Mukurarinda, the author of The Snowfall. Gustave is not only an author, he's also a respected voice in this community, a father, but most of all, he is a survivor. Hello, Gustave.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. How was your flight?
Oh, it was tough. Yeah, just had some issues, lost my luggages, but apparently it was found.
Yes.
Thanks, God.
We thank God you made it safe. So as I said, we're here to talk about the power of telling our stories. Gustave wrote a wonderful book called The Snowfall. Now, Gustave, my first question is going to be the title. Snowfall, Rwanda. I'm sure everyone in the room is wondering why you chose that to be the title. So can you please share what inspired this title and what it symbolizes for you?
Okay, thank you, Sheena. First of all, I'm glad to be here in Edmonton. Edmonton is my home. It's been my home for over 12 years, if I remember. And that's how I feel. I always tell my fellow survivors here that the only place I feel like home when during April is Edmonton. And I wish, for the future, I could always be here during this month. And being hosted by Sheena, one of the young people I saw in this community, it's also a privilege. So coming back to your question, so my book is titled The Snowfall, and the subtitle is One Boy's Account of the 1994 Genocide Against the Tutsi. So yeah, that's the question that keep coming. Everybody say, why the snowfall and the story of the genocide against the Tutsi? So first of all, Canada has been my home for the last almost 18 years. So there's a big part of my life that I lived here, and this is where I started my project of writing. And also, I would say that living in this country was also a trigger, probably that made me write that book. And that's probably, I remember, Daima said something about her mom seeing what she saw during the genocide, and she can actually she can't even imagine what her mom had to go through now, moving to this country. It's a whole other experience, and then it's another journey of survival itself, right? So, and I had an experience also like in this country, and that probably reminded me that even though in Rwanda, I could see everything, like the genocide kept just like, I kept facing everything. But being lonely in this country actually was probably, it made me realize that I probably took for granted some of the natural support I had. So, but by calling it a snowfall, in Canada, the weather is an icebreaker. When you want to talk to somebody, you start by telling them how it is outside. Say it's cold today, it's nice outside, and everything. So, and when I was writing the book, because we talk about later, so it wasn't just like, I wanted to tell my personal story, but I really tried to highlight the broad history of the genocide against the Tutsi. So, and then I could not really find the title. And then I remember the day probably that changed my life, the day that I realized that I can put it in Kinyarwanda, the day I found out narindi aho umwana arira nyina ntiyumve, that was the day I saw the snow. I was in Montreal, like in a tiny little apartment in the basement. After 6 months, just going home every night in that apartment, I couldn't sleep. And I was telling myself, maybe that change, that transformation I was looking for when I came to Canada, it didn't happen because everything still looked the same, the weather and everything. So I thought by the time I saw the snow, maybe something's gonna change. But really, it actually became worse. Because now, even some of the coping mechanisms I had chosen, like say going out and drink and do this, I couldn't do that anymore. So now I had to come home every night facing myself. So that was the point I chose to use as my title, because I couldn't find the title anywhere else in my book. Thank you.
Wow, I know that's so powerful. I think for everyone here that had the climate change and come to this, to witness the snowstorms and how everything shuts down, I think that's the time you're isolated and you're in your thoughts. So way to go for making something bad into something great. I'll go ahead and say that. So talking about the snowfall, I had the privilege of reading your book. As you said, it's an account of a boy who survived the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. And I think the book tells a lot from that perspective, which I really enjoyed. I think most of the people have not had the chance to read your book. So if you could briefly tell us what should the readers look forward to or expect in the book? Thank you.
Thank you. So as the title say, like the subtitle, it say, One Boy's Account of the 1994 Genocide. So I did not call it One Boy's Account of Survival of the Genocide against the Tutsi, because it's really not my personal, it's my personal story, but as I say, I wanted to tell the broad history of the genocide. So that's why I called it One Boy's Account of the Genocide. So it does not limit just around my story. But again, I did not go out of what I saw, of what I heard, or what I overheard, what we call kumviriza, what my parents were talking about, and how I was processing it as a child. So I still I stayed in that lane, and I kept using the voice of that child. So, and my goal, what you can expect by reading The Snowfall is, especially the young generation, I really wanted to give a whole picture. I mean, I cannot give a whole picture, but the majority of it, like let's say if the young generation or anyone who doesn't have an idea about the genocide, even those who knows, to have that picture, because I found myself telling some stories of what happened to my family in 1960s. So first of all, we were born from the genocide survivors, because our grandparents were killed in 1963, like me personally, and I was lucky to know their story, how they were killed. So I never knew my grandfather, any of my grandfathers, and nobody that I knew in my family had a grandfather. So it's a question we never even asked, because we didn't know. It was another thing to have a grandfather. So we were born of genocide survivors, but who could not tell their stories? And at least now we can. So I wanted to really say something, but in a voice of a child, something that a young person can read and relate. And also, even by also the snowfall, like let's say the idea of that is also wanted to tell the struggle, because the genocide did not finish. The killing was stopped, but if we're dealing with the denial right now, that's the genocide that keep going. If we are dealing with challenges, like as Sandra said, or Mugabo, like we're still facing, it's still going on, right? But the killings were stopped. But we are here. So that means even by telling my life in Canada, it was a way to show the struggle, the challenges, what a survivor go through when they get here, what a survivor go through when they face racism. Because this is the reality in this country. Imagine to have survived genocide and come to Canada with the hope that it's a nice country, but then you start facing racism. What does racism, how does it fit to a survivor? So, and then also, after the genocide, the journey, how did you go back to school? How did you face all this? How did we see what was our role as survivors in rebuilding Rwanda? So all these things are in my book. So that's what you can expect by reading the Snowfall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gustav. Now, talking about your book, there is a point that I reached, and it was where you realized that your childhood was over and you were taking on responsibility of your younger sibling and other family members. I just wanted to, for you to share with us how that shift from childhood to caretaker overnight affected you in that moment and even the years later.
Okay, thank you. So I believe that every story in my book actually explains the genocide. Because, first of all, for the parents to take an 11 years old, their 11-year-old son, and give them like their 9-year-old sister, say like, please take care of your sister. It's because we never sat like down before and being explained what's gonna happen, or they never told us, but we were prepared. So being prepared is that by growing up, we knew what to say and what not to say. We knew we could not ask too much about where our grandfathers has gone. So that means somehow we were ready, and my parents knew we were ready. And when they say that, I wasn't like, I would say by the moment, even the few days that led to that, I couldn't complain. So I feel like if we talk about the genocides were prepared, that's what it is, because it's like all our life, we were prepared for that. We were prepared for that. I knew, of course, my parents tried their best to give us like a very good, like let's say we had a very good experience like at home. We were raised in a very loving family. But at the same time, we knew what to say inside the house and what not to say outside. So I would say by that time when they told me, take your sister and try to survive, I didn't even say, why me, where are you going? I just did it because I knew, sometimes like we used to be told by our fellow, like the children at school, sometimes when on that first days of school when they were doing the registrations, and that's where they would just call us like the Tutsi, so the Hutu. So at that day, there was tension. Even when we went to play soccer, they'll be like, today we are playing Tutsis against Hutus. And we'll only be like 4 of us, and they start bullying us, right? And sometime one child will be like, you know, one day they're gonna kill you. Sometimes. So you go home and tell your parents, and they'll be like, yeah, I understand, but don't worry. Jesus will protect us. But you know, they will tell you something, but you know you have to worry. You know what house to go to. You know, at my age, I know every house in the community. I knew which one was Hutu, which one was Tutsi. I knew where to play and where not to play. So I knew I would walk, and if I see this one person, I knew it was dangerous. I would go on the other side. So by the time of the genocide, we were already prepared. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And how did that, I believe it went with you even when you came here, even when you continued with your life. Like, how does that affect you as a person to now deal with that part of your life and then just be expected to move on and carry on where you left off, if that makes sense?
Yeah, this again, I say, so let's say that's what we lived before the genocide. But again, after the genocide now, of course, I remember Mugabo said that most of the young survivors who joined the army, in the beginning they thought they're going to try to, to revenge, right? So you can imagine what was in the mind of a survivor during the genocide. The first thing was like, I'm not gonna go to school with those kids anymore, right? But then the next day, you have to find yourself in school and you have to behave. Actually, you have to set the example, right? So that's, again, another, let's say, I don't know if we could call it resilience or something, but believe me, I don't even think it was just resilience as we wished, but sometimes we didn't know what was happening. It's not something we can explain, but I actually remember when I went back to my hometown in Nyanza for the first time. It was probably almost after a year, so I saw this one child who was wearing my sweater, right? And when I saw that, I actually was scared. You know, I should have gone and faced him, but this time I actually ran away because I don't know how I can explain that. So, and I also remember one day I went to the district office, that time they called it commune, and was this guy, one of the prisoners. I saw him, I saw him in the group that killed my dad, that took my dad. And again, I also didn't know whereabout he was killed. And then they say, okay, we're gonna get him out so you can speak to him. So when this guy came, he yelled at me, and again, I ran away. So I wouldn't call it a resilience, but it's really what happened to us. It's not something like really, I would say, we understood, so we knew how to handle that in the aftermath, right? But one thing I can say is that the aftermath was the worst than actually the actual, this is what I think. During the genocide, every night you made it, you kind of celebrated in your heart. You said, I made it today. So that means we didn't have time to cry, we didn't have time to mourn, right? But then in the aftermath, everything was, so that's the time we didn't even know what it is, what happened to us, everything. That's actually the time I always have had time to handle. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gustav. Now, your book did mention that it's for, as you said earlier, it's for the young adults, the teenagers, the scholars, and even to help the survivors around us. What would be your advice for the young people in this room and our community in general?
Thank you. So, first of all, I'll start by the survivors. I would say that genocide survivors really, I don't know, I respect you, really, honestly. And I do never have any pressure. Say yes, it's good to tell our story, but telling our story, sometimes I was lucky to be able to write it. And Dr. Germaine is lucky that she's that strong. She can go on with her education and even help other survivors to talk about it. So I would say the survivors, like really, you are strong, and I appreciate, and keep doing what you're doing. Even if you're not able to tell your story that day, but there's a lot of things you do, right? That really is part of the storytelling journey. So now the younger generation, you see that gap where like your parents, like your aunties are not able to talk. So this is where you come in. So I want to tell you, really, this is also, as I say, we were born our genocide survivors who survived in the 60s. And even the people who were refugees abroad, why did they flee? They fled the same genocide that was being perpetrated in the 60s. That was not accepted because the same people who were committing the genocide were the same people who kept leading the country. And we could call it, they tried it, they invested in it, they did everything until 1994. So the young generation, if your parents are not able to talk, it's probably you can talk. And I see people, I've seen some of the young people who are doing their studies, like they're doing like PhDs in genocide studies and stuff. You can always do that. So because we don't know, we still don't understand. And I did read one of the survivors, he wrote this. He said, sometimes telling the story of surviving the genocide, it sometimes does not add up. And then he said, but of course I understand because the genocide is still does not add up. So sometimes as the genocide survivors, there are things we cannot explain. But young people probably can do research, can do a lot of things, and help us to even understand that. So that's what I can tell. Like young people, you are also a second generation genocide survivors. So this is your story. Take it in hand. Wherever we can do, wherever we are weak, try to be strong. But also, we know whatever we go through, it affects you guys. If you are weak, some of us who feel strong, we have to be there for you guys. So that's what I say. And that goes to the whole community, to the whole Rwandan community. This is our story. This is our history. We all have to really remember, every one of us need to do something about it. It's like, it's not just for genocide survivors to tell the story or the history. So it's for all of us in the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gustav. Before we leave the stage, I just wanted to know, how can we access your book? I'm sure a lot of people are eager to read it, eager to be informed, and maybe they don't know where to find it. So maybe you can help us by telling us.
Oh, thank you so much. So I would say today, as I say, last night I had lost my luggage, but luckily one of our friends here in the community managed to go to the airport and got them for me. So I will have a few copies here after if anyone wants that. But if you can get a copy today, you can have on any platform online that sells book, like it's available on Amazon, and even you can order from the local bookstore anywhere. Online, you will just get the copy. But for today, hopefully I will have them in time. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Gustav. I want to formally thank you for your strength and vulnerability, for writing this book and giving that young boy that wasn't able to speak out a voice that will live on as a legacy that goes on. And I hope that all of us enjoyed these conversations that we just had. If anyone has questions for Gustav, please know that he's staying a little while longer so you can have a conversation with him. And yeah, that's all the time we had for today. Thank you so much. Thank
you.
Thank you, Sheena and Gustave. Thank you so much for respecting time. We are still really behind the schedule, but we will try our very best to honor your time. Now we are going to have a little moment of having a slideshow of the pictures of our beloved that we lost in 1994 during the genocide against the Tutsi of Rwanda. People who, the faces that would appear on those pictures, those are the people that, again, like a lot of us say it here, when we say about 1 million of the victims, it's not just numbers. Those are families, those are people's spouses, those are people's parents, those are children. So we want to put a name to it so that we do not forget them. It is one thing to forget about what happened, but it's very sad to forget the face of your parent, to forget what your parents used to look like. So we will try our very best to preserve their memories, to preserve them. And it is a privilege. I consider it a very huge privilege for that the survivors accept to share those pictures with us. So please, I ask you to bring your attention that as we see those beautiful pictures, beautiful faces.
I am who I am because I value my past. The memories of yesterday can never be changed, but they give me a reason to live again. There is a reason I am here today, but there is no reason you lost your lives. You were called abusive names, deprived of rights to be humans, slayed because of who you were born. A candle as the sign of resilience. I'm paying a tribute. You left a legacy, and I'm a fruit from the love you sowed. Let's say never again to genocide. There should be no war. There should be no genocide anywhere. Let's say never again to genocide. Let's say never again to genocide. I was young, I still needed you, but you were taken away from me too soon. If I had one wish, it would be seeing you again. Today we're strong men and women, even though you are not here to see. We're carrying on to make you feel proud out there, watching down our lives. I am lighting a candle as the sign of resilience. I'm paying a tribute. You left a legacy, and I'm a fruit from the love you sowed. Let's say never again to genocide. There should be no war. There should be no genocide anywhere. Let's say never again. together as one, we can make sure genocide never happens again. History should be told and passed on to further generations. Let's all stand up and all sing out, never again to genocide. Let's say never again to genocide. There should be no one, there should be no genocide. Anyway, let's say never again to genocide. Let's say never again to genocide. We are here as one nation. We say never again. We unite as a human race. We say never again to genocide. Never again to genocide. Never again. We brought you flowers. We brought you flowers. We brought you flowers. We brought you flowers. We brought you I am who I am because I value my past. The memories of yesterday can never be changed, but they give me a reason to live.
Again, thank you, beloved, to share your families with us. I think we all can agree, those were beautiful faces. Now I'm going to call Pastor Deborah, give her brief time because we are really running out of time. She will introduce the speech that was dedicated to us by the High Commissioner of Rwanda in Canada. So, Pastor Deborah, please make your way.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to give a special announcement. My name is Pastor Deborah, and I'm here as the president of Rwanda community abroad here in Edmonton. Our ambassador was scheduled to join us for this event, but unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, he was not able to attend. Kindly, I will ask to take a moment to watch a video message that he prepared for us. May the Lord continue to comfort all the survivors. We continue to pray for you. God bless you.
Banyarwandakazi, dear friends, ndabashuje. Warm greetings. 31 years ago, the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi started with unprecedented intensity and brutality. In just 100 days, over 1 million Rwandans were killed indiscriminately. Kwibuka 31 is an occasion to remember our loved ones who were killed for no other reason than that they were Tutsi. We must keep their memory alive as we enact the shared duty and responsibility to remember, unite, and renew. To the survivors and the families who lost their loved ones, I recognize the unimaginable pain you have carried, not only in 1994, but in every year that has followed. Your strength, your dignity, and your perseverance are testaments to the human spirit. You remind us that survival is not just about staying alive, it's about choosing to live with courage and meaning. We mourn with you, we honor the memory of those taken too soon, and we carry forward the lessons written in their absence. Aho muri menye ko tubumva kandi turi kumwe namwe. The genocide against the Tutsi was not a spontaneous tragedy. It was planned, executed, and justified by an ideology of hate and divisionism. It did not happen by accident. It happened because of a deliberate political choice to divide, to dehumanize, and to exterminate. Today, our responsibility is not only to remember this truth, but to defend it. Genocide denial and distortion are not mere acts of historical distortion. They are acts of minimization, obstruction of justice, and justification of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. They reopen wounds and attempt to erase the suffering of survivors, fueling the same ideology that led to genocide. Furthermore, they threaten the progress that Rwanda and its people have worked so hard to build. As we honor the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, I invite you all to confront the denial wherever it appears, defend the truth, and reject hate and divisionism in all its forms. We must also educate the next generation not only about what happened in Rwanda, but also about why it happened and how easily it can happen again if we are not vigilant. Let us all make this vow to ensure that what occurred in Rwanda in 1994 never happens again anywhere else. Education about the genocide is one of the most important ways to keep the memory of the victims alive, to fight denial, and to truly ensure that genocide never happens again. It is necessary to have dedicated monuments so that we may continue to reflect on the lives lost and on the consequences of the genocide. I call on members of the Rwandan community in Canada to lead the effort to educate other communities in Canada about the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. I call on you to lead the way in fighting genocide denial and hate speech. Thank you all for having participated in this Kwibuka 31. Thank you in particular to survivors of the genocide for your resilience and bravery. You represent the triumph of Rwanda. And thank you for your kind attention.
we have come almost to the end of our program. Our last item on the agenda, I'm going to call the President of the Memory Keepers Association, Mr. Emery Kairanga, to come and give us the speech of today.
Mwiriwe. Muranyihanganira ijambo ryanjye ndafata umwanya mutoya ariko ndagenda simbukamo nyuma yo kumva testimonies ntabwo byoroshye. Bari bansabye kucana urumuri tugitangira, ndababwira nti babe baretse for a reason. I wanted to just give the space first to the testimonies. Then I will light the candle on their behalf and what they shared with us today. So I would like to ask Castor to bring, I can do the lighting candles for now. It is a heavy day today, but I want to thank you for joining Memory Keepers Association for this year's grand ceremony of the 31st Commemoration of the 1994 Genocide Against the Tutsi in Rwanda. As a president of the association and with my executive and the Memory Keepers Association in general, we would like to express our gratitude to all friends, Rwandans, non-Rwandans who are here today to support our cause. We have gathered here today to remember our families who were brutally killed in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, simply because they were Tutsi. Prior to April, as Sandra said, and Mugabo, life was normal. It was normal like everywhere else. Death were isolated incidents and sporadically as everywhere else. Everything changed on April 7th, 1994. Deaths were not isolated events. It became a collective tragedy and injustice to the Tutsi's family. The pain of losing our people turned into anger and disbelief at what was happening to us. Death knocked close to every survivor's life while they were hiding. And we were tested for 100 days and in the years to come, up to today. Some of us were left orphaned without parents or siblings. We stand here today to say, never again, and to reaffirm our existence. They planned completely to wipe us out, but they failed. We stand as the shadows of our parents, siblings, families, and friends who lost their lives in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. We honor and remember over 1 million of our families who lost their life in the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. The genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda was one of the most horrific events of the 20th century, and it's recognized by the UN and various countries, including Canada. Commemorating the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda is a significant duty of survivors and Rwandans at large. It serves multiple crucial purposes. Honoring the victim in a way to honor them and ensure their suffering and loss are not forgotten. Promoting a healing process to acknowledge the survivors' pain and support efforts to rebuild. Educating future generations the historical events, the causes and the consequences of the genocide to prevent such atrocities from happening again. Combating denial and genocide ideology to reinforce the truth about the genocide and counters any attempt to deny the historical facts and engage and solidarity with international communities and countries to recognize the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi and collective responsibility to prevent genocide and commitment to remembering and learning from this strategy. As we have heard from the testimonies from Dr. Germain's presentation and Gustave's book, I would like to take a moment to thank every survivors for their work and contribution to ensure we honor our people and remain resilient despite the challenges life has put us through. Nshuti bavandimwe, nk'uko nabivuze dutangiza icyunamo, nzajya nkomeza kubivuga, ibyabaye ku bacu natwe bikatubaho ni ibyacu. Nta wundi ufite umusaraba wo kumenya ko ijwi ryabo rigomba kuva muri twebwe. Nawe tuzabisiganira kuko ari ibyacu. Kwibuka ni inshingano za buri munyarwanda wese. Memory Keepers Association ntiyakwitwaza umusaraba dufite wo kwegera abarokotse muri community yacu yonyine. Dukeneye imbaraga zanyu kuko igikorwa cyo kwibuka ni icya buri munsi. Kandi ni icya buri munyarwanda wese. Gukora ibikorwa by'urukundo nko gusura cyangwa guhemba umubyeyi wabyaye utagifite abe, gufasha uwahungabanye n'ibikorwa bidahagarara kandi bitureba twese. Mureke dusenyere ku mugozi umwe wo kwegera abacitse ku icumu badafite abababa hafi muri ubu buzima, cyane cyane muri community yacu. As we honor and remember our difficult past, we carry our sorrow and sadness, but we look forward to rebuilding our future. We are resilient in facing life and we are determined to overcome the challenges stemming from the tragedy of our history. Our journey is not the easy one. It's filled with challenges, including the absence of parents, siblings, or other loved ones to talk to in certain situations. Memory Keepers Association seeks support from each of you to help in our cause of mental health. While many survivors are strong, there are some who need our support and guidance to seek help and find available resources. We have hope for the future and the aim to support each other during the challenging times to ensure we leave a great legacy for our people. Before I conclude my speech, I would like to take a moment to thank everyone who joined today, but also to the teams. We could have not achieved all these events without your support. While I won't name individuals, I'd like to make a special thank you to the team which organized today's event, including the Walk to Remember, visual, and the opening ceremony, as well as a big thank you to the social media team who have done an outstanding work to make sure that the success of the 31st Commemoration is very well promoted and very well documented on social medias and the all platforms. I cannot stop without thanking other organizations who have helped us this year. Special thanks goes to Edmonton Heritage Council and African Center, who have been partners in supporting our events. And I want to thank every Rwandans who have contributed financially to ensure that our events have financial means to hold them. Special thanks to Oak Hill Ranch as well and Edmonton Jewish Federation for your support in these events. Before I conclude my speech, we got elected beginning of this year, and the majority of you don't know who is on the executive. I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce the whole executive of a Memory Keepers Association, which will be leading the association for the next 3 years. And I'm going to ask a favor from everybody to support. Feel free to reach out to one of us who's on the executive on how you can help. A small contribution is very appreciated. I'm gonna start with the vice president. The vice president of the association is Christelle Kayigire. Please come forward. And Secretary General Claudia Mubyeyi. Treasurer Norbert Kamatari. Social Affairs Officers Gode Mkarukundo and Deborah Wihai. We have 3 advisors. I would like to ask the advisors to come forward as I call their names. Nicole, Arlette, and Seth, please come forward. This is your team. We have a mandate to carry on the Memory Keepers Association's goals. We cannot achieve it without your support. I'm asking to reach out, everyone to reach out to one of these people. Any support to move forward with our association, especially I'm going to emphasize on that, supporting our people, supporting survivors, especially with mental health. We come into this country without having anybody. Our associations, from the beginning, Seth was one of the members, the president, the first president, cannot do it itself. We cannot achieve it ourselves. We need your help when we call, when we text you that we need your support. Please feel free to join the team and help these amazing people. I'm going to conclude my message for today by thanking everybody. Dr. Germaine Tuiseng and Gustave, who traveled to be with us today, and all other people who have helped. I'm going to mention a special person, a special team, which I was going to forget. Social Joyce team, and Lisa and the people you work with to help and support our people who cannot sometimes become heavy, but you're there to support them. So I say thank you. Thank you to everyone. God bless you. Please check on each other, help each other. Nk'uko Nicole yabivuze, mureke tugire urukundo, dufashanye. Murakoze.
Friends, that concludes our program today. I just want to mention that we do have refreshments in the back. Also, I just heard that Gustave's books have arrived. We have few copies. If you wish to purchase a copy or talk to him, he will have a table in the back. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you again for coming and being here with us. We truly appreciate you. And once again, we ask you to be kind to one another. Murakoze.